Hey, brothers and sisters. So I wanted to come and talk to you guys about a very, did I stress very? Very important thing that is going on right now, and that is with the Pipeline 3. This is, there is right now, as I speak, as I'm writing this video, at the Public Utility Commission's, PUC, you might have heard it that way too, located at 121 7th Street, St. Paul, Minnesota 55101. That is going on right now. We have people that are out there that are holding space for our land, that are holding space for our word, and holding space for our health, really, and our future. At this point right now, we are looking at a destructive future. We are looking at the holy hells. If you know of any kind of American folklore, or any Native American folklore, right now we are in the Anishinaabe time of the 7th ring of fire, which is huge. I'm going to explain that later. But right now, brothers and sisters, we are going through a lot, and we are fighting for our land. And, you know, for far too long, we have put this on the natives. We only have a few reservations, 13 reservations within the state of Minnesota. Currently, only 4 of those are going to be affected by what I am talking about, which means that the rest of the land, brothers and sisters, you need to get your butt up and you need to start fighting for it, because we need to stop laying the burden onto the natives for the land that is also ours, for the land that also is going to be affecting us when we have issues with our Pipeline 3 going down. So I want to kind of explain to you guys what is going on, but first I want to explain why this is so important to us, and why it's such a valuable thing to know. I mean, we're facing right now a lot of destructions in our land and in our water. And brothers and sisters, I'm going to let you know right now that 50% of your DNA matches that of nature. I have done study after study, research after research. I've gone around the world, and I was able to speak at the National Symposium that was held at Harvard University Faculty Club. And in doing that, I did a lot of research to explain why the effect of nature and people are so close together, and how we can heal with nature, and how nature is just like us. So first want to explain the fact that within our DNA cell, we're actually structured very much like nature. We have 50% of DNA that nature has, and anything that you can see within our body, you can see within nature. And so when we're looking at nature, when we're looking at saving it, when we're looking at the pipelines, then something that we also need to consider is that we're also hurting our structures. We're also hurting our self and our livelihood, realistically. So I just want to kind of show you guys what I'm talking about with this DNA matching, and I hope that it comes through just fine. So right here, sorry guys, I'm going to have to turn you guys to my computer screen here. And as you can see here, so this right here is a healthy sand dollar and healthy cancer cells. And as you can see, the structure of them are just the same. But when we go over here to a dead sand dollar and a cancerous or an active cancer cell, you can see how it roots very differently. And then look at the dead skin compared to an agate crystal. Or let's even look at the veins of the human veins versus the veins that are within the trees. And then it even comes down on a cellular level. There's the human cell, and there is the cell of a pine tree there. So as you can see, like our structure, and I can even go further into this to even say that the structure of our solar system here is the exact same as an atom. And when you look at the neurons in the brains, it looks the exact same thing as the star system. When we're looking at selenite, the selenite is a type of crystal that has fibers within the muscle cells of it, and it is the exact same as the human muscle cells, down to the structure of it, lightning and the eyes. Okay, so what I'm trying to show you guys here is that Mother Nature matters when it comes to our own body, when it actually comes to our own self, and the way that Mother Nature reacts, that's the way that we're going to react. So take that into consideration when I am talking about you and your connection with nature, that it's a whole lot closer than what you actually think that it is. Now let's get on to Enbridge. The United States has the largest network of energy pipelines in the world, with more than 2.4 million miles of pipeline. The network of the crude oil pipeline in the USA is extensive, and there is approximately 72,000 miles of crude line oils in the USA that connect to the regional markets. Enbridge operates the world's longest and most complex crude oil and liquid transportation within the system that lies approximately 17,018 miles. The active crude oil lines or lays across the North America. Now, Enbridge Line 3 is the longest running pipeline in the world, running over 3,100 miles from Canada to the USA. 1,900 miles are in the USA, and it is the biggest conduit for the fossil fuels, petroleum, liquid gas, crude oil, sand oil, and propane. And Enbridge delivers 1.7 million barrels a day. So within a barrel is 42 gallons. So when we break that into gallons, that is, we are pulling from line 3, 714 million gallons a day, which accounts for 23% of crude oil within the entire USA. The Minnesota section of Enbridge pipeline accounts for nearly 300 miles of this. And the pipeline 3 that we are talking about is actually considered, or what is called, is the Lakehead system. So if you go down there today and you're listening to the Lakehead and you're wondering what that is what is called is the Enbridge system that we have, is the Lakehead system. The company owns the 6 major out of 11 pipelines that are currently running through the USA. And what is happening right now is they are not functioning the way that they want, okay? They're not functioning at the speed that they want. So let's talk about this for a little bit. So during my research, I found that the crude oil that they are carrying, which is most of the oil and most of the substance that is going through these pipelines, crude oil actually needs some kind of heat to thin it out. Otherwise, it's very sticky. So let's compare that to the human arteries. A lot of people have known about heart attacks and cholesterol and all that fun stuff, okay? So let's say that our pipeline was our arteries or our veins within our body, however you want to think about it. Let's think veins. It's a little bit easier than the arteries. Okay, so now we have our veins, and we're born, right? We have the full 100% flow that is going through, but the more fatty foods, the more things that we eat, it kind of cruds up, right? And then the cholesterol builds, and then suddenly we don't have as much blood flow that is going through. But the blood flow that is going through does have to push a lot more pressure, because it has to get it through this little system. So you'll see the blood pressures go up. And when the blood pressures and stuff go up, sometimes we have breaking of the veins. Pop, there goes varicose veins. What is happening with Enbridge right now is that their pipes are getting filled with cholesterol per se, or it's actually crude oil res. And so with that res that is being in there, they are producing about 20 to 40% what they want to be at in a given place of this Lakehead pipeline. Okay, so in saying that, though, they are still producing 400 barrels extra a day than what they projected when they first laid down the line. Okay, but what we do know with hearts is when that pressure builds, when that goes, then what ends up happening is it can pop, it can leak, it can break, and then we need to put in our little mesh holders within our veins or arteries to help them stay whole again, right? And they need to be per se replaced. And that is what is happening with Enbridge right now, is that they are saying that they have all these cracks and stuff. They actually have over 900 anomalies that are going on, pressure cracks, problems with their little 3/4 inch nipples that have spread gallons and gallons and gallons of crude oil all over. Now, the reason that they are having this problem with it getting caught up in the pipeline is because crude oil actually needs to be transported with a source of heat, and it thins it out. It allows it to come down. So that's why when you put oil in the engines, it thins out a little bit. Well, they're not doing that. They don't have a way to actually thin out or heat up any of this crude oil. And so right now it is becoming a point where we're not able to have an effective delivery system for crude oil, because it's getting backed up and now causing issues within our states, within our problems. Okay, or I mean within our pipelines. Sorry, the pipelines are a problem. So let's just say that from here on out. No, so yeah, it's causing a lot of problems because they're not distributing it the proper way, and they have yet to say how they would properly distribute the crude oil. Now, Enbridge put its first line 3 down in 1960. And since then has been having a huge amount of problems. What they're planning on doing right now is they're planning on working this system here. So I'm going to kind of draw this out for you guys and hope that you guys can see this. So let's say that this right now is where the pipeline is going through right now, okay? So their plan is to leave some of that and redo. a new pipeline going through there, which would mean that all of this remainder part right here, as of right now, they have no plans for that. The best solution that they could come up with is to clean it out and pull it up, which would be going through Leech Lake reservations and break yet another treaty that we already broke with them. Not only will it break the treaty with them, it'll also break the treaty with the Mille Lacs Lake Band of Ojibways, the Fond du Lac, White Earth Nation, as well as the Leech Lake. So they actually are thinking about putting two of those the pipeline will go through Mississippi twice, and it would go through White Earth Nation also, which would be breaking a lot of their tribes and their treaties that we said that we wouldn't do. So brothers and sisters, this is a huge issue right now. The cost of the new pipeline would be $5.3 billion on Canada's side and $2.9 billion on Minnesota's side. Now, why this is so hard, why this is not just a cutthroat case of saying, yeah, this is ridiculous, we don't need any of this oil or whatnot, is because there was a law passed in 1987 with the Minnesota State Bill SF 90 that was accompanied by the pipeline industry and their lobbying. And actually for this bill, and as they were writing this bill, Enbridge supported and paid for a lot of it, and they were actually in the making of the 1987 bill, and so they know what to do. They were the ones that were giving out the major handouts to the pipelines, and the industry friendly language obviously differs from that of the 1986 Minnesota Commission of the Pipeline Safety. So they went in there, they knew the wording that they needed, they foresaw that there would be a problem down the way, and they went ahead and they made it in our bill to say that that they have these certain wordings and that they're utilizing against us right now to say, hey, but I'll tell you right now, as of now, we have not met the burden, and we have not met for the certificate of need. There are 4 different steps that you need, or 4 different things that you need to meet the certificate of need, and right now Enbridge doesn't have one. They already are receiving more of the projected oil that they had asked for, and more projected oil than what we would even need for the next 250 years. So why is it that they are pushing so hard for oil? Well, there's a few different things. As one, it is the most money-making business in the world right now. And before there was oil, and not that anyone knew, but before there was even money, I should say that we dug for gold, and gold was our first currency. And once we started putting those into golden bricks, it got a little heavy to carry around those bricks all the time. Plus, carrying around 50 bricks of gold on your back was kind of obvious, and so people would get robbed. So they came up with a solution to make what is now the Minnesota currency that we have now. It, of course, has evolved and changed a bit, but it started with the coins, and then on came the dollar bills. And so right now, as it stands, we cannot back the gold standard, and money used to back gold standard. That's what it was called, gold standard, because we could actually back the gold. But we went ahead and we printed out too much, and we made too much money that no longer does gold actually back our money. So we're sitting around with monopoly money right now. Any of you guys who think that you have money, you don't. You got monopoly money, and it's your imagination that is actually making that thing work. Because what has happened, and why we are trying to gather so much oil, is that within the USA, we hold the most amount of oil right now that has already been drawn up over the world, and we were doing that so that we could actually back our U.S. currency. Up until last year, only the U.S. currency was accepted for exchanging in oil, but China made a big, huge stance, and they won, and now the yen is actually accepted, and they can do fair trades with Russia and whatnot. And so now the USA does not have a leg to stand on. And so the only thing that we can think of is produce as much oil as we possibly can so that we can back our money and our finances by the oil. Because before then, which we would say is China would say, where's our money? Oh, we don't have any, but if you guys make all these products made in China, then we'll go ahead and we'll give you the money, and then you will have the currency that you need to go ahead and buy the oils. But as of right now, they no longer need us. They can start trading among their countries on that side of the seas, and we're kind of screwed right now. So we're under a huge panic right now, because how are we going to back our money if we don't have this oil? And it just goes on and on and on. Now, the question that was asked to me, the most question that was happening to me when I was at this protest last week was, well, how did you get here? Okay, well, I got here on my governmental approved car. That's how I got here, because as of right now, the only car that the government has approved, and the only car that the Safety Association has approved, is that of gas and oil. Okay, because in 1938 we had the first car that was actually ran off of a quartz crystal. You didn't need a radiator, you didn't need any oil, you didn't need an engine, you didn't even need you didn't even need gas. Okay, you take your quartz car, you put it in there, it's powered by quartz and electromagnetic fields and whatnot, and when your engine runs out, you go out into nature and you replace your engine. Okay, we have the hydro car, which would actually separate the hydrogen and the oxygen from each other during the car, and utilize that as a breakdown, and when it went out the exhaust, we would actually be helping nature. We have our vegetable oil car, where we could be running off of vegetable oil rather than crude oil, and in doing that, a lot of cities and a lot of states have started shutting them down, saying that it's not okay for restaurant stuff to go out into the cars, because what if something happens to the car and then the restaurant's going to be sued, and it's this big whole thing, so we got shut down there. We have our electric car, we have our nanoflow car, or a quants car. Okay, we have over 11 different cars that we could be using right now, all which have been rejected, or the people have somehow miraculously decided that they were going to kill themselves and go through suicidal or go through suicide, or there has been accidents that have happened. You can't even read about the quartz car anymore unless you are actually reading a book, because everything was dismissed from the internet and everything else. So, I mean, there are options out there. There are huge options that are money-saving options. Not only, do we have to save our money with no gas and no oil, but also in the production of the engines. We wouldn't need that much stuff anymore. And when we want to look at the car, because people are coming back, well, how are you going to make all your fiberglass? How are you going to make your pharmaceuticals? What about your diapers? What about your plastics? What about all this other stuff? Brothers and sisters, we got something called hemp. Okay, and that hemp has been shown to be able to make clothes. We have been able to show that we can make shingles from the roof. We have been able to show that we can literally make everything: food, concrete, you name it, we can make it from hemp. There is a guy named Kevin Shores who's from Waders Nation, and he does something called the Cannabis Resolution, where he's actually trying to transfer everything over into cannabis grown things. Now, he calls the cannabis what you guys call hemp. He has very good reason for calling it that, because cannabis is actually the name of the plant. But for those of you out there who are not familiar with his terminology, do look him up, do look at and see the products and stuff that they can make, because it far exceeds what we have right now, and it would be biodegradable. It would help with our body when we're having our pharmaceuticals, and if you want a little capsule and you can't get away from doing things naturally, then that's fine. Fill yourself with a little bit of that hemp. Okay, so our productions in our car would actually be cheaper. Us driving all over would be cheaper, and we would have so much room. And with the 250 years that we have in our current state of oil, we would have technology, and we would be able to have our scientists make up something that we could drive around within that 250 years. I'm darn sure of it. So Minnesota Pollution Control Agency shows that dozens of spills in northern Minnesota over the last 48 years, dating back to when the company was Duluth-based Lakehead Pipelines. The company now is the Texas-based pipeline, and a subsidiary of Canadian firm operators in the system of the pipeline that bring from the oil from Canada into northwestern Minnesota, then across the USA, Highway 2 into Superior, where the crude oil continues to Chicago and points of the east, including Michigan. Okay, now in 1979, we had a huge spill, and that was one of the biggest spills that we had at that time with Enbridge. And over and over and over, they have shown that they do not care enough. Maybe they care a little. They do not care enough about these oil spills. They do not. They are not taking action. Their response time is anywhere from 10 hours to 5 years. Okay. The big spill that happened in Michigan, that was over $800 million, happened, and when the company found out in 2005 that there was anomalies, that there was cracks, and there was fissures and fractures that were all over the pipeline, they didn't do anything about it until the big spillage happened later on in 2010. Then and only then did they take action. They have failed over and over and over. They have been sued by North Dakota. They have been sued by Michigan, Illinois, Minnesota, and Wisconsin, because of the fact that they are not keeping up to what they said. They are not living by what they said, and there is issues after issues after issue with it. So let's talk about these issues because they're very important. August 20th, 1979, Lakehead Company pipeline seam split, spewing 440,000 gallons of crude oil all over. It was the largest pipeline spill in Minnesota at that time, and inches of oil were spilled all within the wetlands. If you actually look at the pictures, you can see it going anywhere from 7 to 13 inches of oil that actually had spilled in some of the wetlands, and it's pretty bad. Oil spillages in such places like Glendive, Montana, also residents there, because of this spillage, cannot drink or cook within that tainted water. Adding a new route would create 50 more oil generators, which would interrupt the conditions of the ecosystem within all of our areas. And drilling oil of increase climate costs for the proposed 2017 to 2022 5-year program of the offshore oil leasing could also lead to an increased emission of 850 million metric tons of carbon dioxide over roughly 50 years. So the oil and stuff that they're going to be producing, or that they're wanting to do, and what they are doing right now and what they're holding up, is actually within just those 5 years of them production is going to put out 850 million metric tons of carbon dioxide over the next 50 years, which means that we are going to have a whole lot of pollution. That's equivalent to the emissions of 3.6 million cars on the road over that same period of time. Now, there's been damage and damage and damage that has happened. The largest inland oil spill that has ever occurred, period, has happened in 1991, when 1.7 million barrels of oil were spilled on the land, and most of it flowed into the Prairie River near Grand Rapids, Minnesota, and it took 17 hours for them to respond, at which point, when they did respond, it was during a snowstorm. They had to break the ice, they had to dig into the ecosystem, and everything had to come out of hibernation. We had to save the animals. It was a whole big thing. On August 4th, 1996, 420 gallons of unspecified petroleum products were spilled within the Lakehead pipe near Donaldson. September 16th. Now, I'm only going to talk about the ones that have happened in Minnesota and Wisconsin, okay? There are many more. Enbridge was actually sued, and they were told by a judge that they had to come out with a yearly statement saying that they had to come up with all of these pipelines and all of these leaks, and they have to let it known they have to make a public statement of the things that they had been working on, and they failed to do so over and over and over. They hid all of this. All of the stuff that I have gathered are actually from the public reporting it. Enbridge stopped reporting it, stating that they were, when they are being sued or when they are going to court, that they do not have to let out their information. They don't have to publicly display their information, because that is for the courts. It is not for the community. And so therefore, they have been sued since 1914. They have been, there has been court case after court case after court case after court case. And so because of this, they have actually stopped telling the people what is happening with that. So let's move on. On July 22nd of 2000, 20,000 of gallon of crude oil spilled from Lakehead pipeline near Leonard. And also in the northwestern Minnesota, 50 barrels of crude oil were released onto the Lakehead system into the wetlands and remote area. They are not saying where that is. I could not find that information. Once again, you had to be there to catch all the points. Enbridge spills have recently that have occurred as recently as June 9th of 2009. 5 gallons of crude oil spilled near Floodwood in March 13th, and then March 13th of 2009, 50 gallons of crude oils were spilled into Clearbrook, Wisconsin. This is an ongoing spill that has happened between 1979 and the 2009, and finally they did something about it when the last 50 gallons of that oil were spilled throughout those two communities. Now on July 4th, 2002, this is a very scary one that we should have known about. Actually, July 4th, 2002, a 34-inch diameter pipeline owned by its affiliate Enbridge Energy Partners ruptured in the marsh near the town of Cohasset, Minnesota, contaminating 5 acres of wetlands, spilling 6,000 barrels of crude oil. So when Enbridge did not properly when Enbridge didn't properly clean up, or they didn't properly take care of this, and it was starting to get to the point where it was going to reach the Mississippi River, our team of Minnesota Department of Natural Resources actually had to come in, and they had to do a controlled burn on our wetlands that lasted for at least 1 day. The smoke created a plume about 1 mile high and 5 miles long. So all the people within that community of that 10-mile radius were actually evacuated, asked to leave while we set our land on fire because of this oil. Now on January 24th, 2003, more than 100 gallons were spilled from Enbridge pipeline in Superior. Most of that was recovered, but 19,000 gallons then went ahead and spilled into the ice in the river near Namidji River. In 2004, the Pipeline and Hazardous Material Safety Administration proposed a fine of $11,500 against Enbridge Energy for the safety violations found in the inspection of the pipelines in Illinois, Indiana, and Michigan. Parallel to that was also the state of Minnesota, and we also sued them and went after them in an initial penalty of $30,000, which was reduced to $25,000. January 1st, 2007, 50,000 gallons of Enbridge pipelines in Clark County that runs from Superior, Wisconsin to near Whitewater, Wisconsin, cracked open and spilled 1,250 barrels of crude oil onto the farmland in the drainage ditch, which left all of the farmers without any crops, and a lot of them lost out on a lot of money, had to refinance, and they are still picking up, some of them unable to actually grow there because of the harm that was done. But that's on them, that's on Enbridge, because whoops, we didn't mean to do that. On February 2nd, 2007, construction crew stuck Enbridge pipelines near the Exlin in Rusk County, Wisconsin, and spilling 3,000 barrels of crude oils. Some of the oil filled a hole that was more than 20 feet deep and contaminated the local water table. Now, the water table is the water that is below the ground, and the water's that below there, and and once we start contaminating the waters on our water table that is below, then it's a huge thing, because we can't actually see what is going on there, and we can't see the basis of our water that is running through. 2018, the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources charged Enbridge with more than 100 environmental violations relating to the construction of the pipeline across the strait. Pipeline construction was plagued by problems including illegal harm to the wetlands, the stream beds, and failure to control erosions in their waterway. And Enbridge settled with the state of Wisconsin for $1.1 million in fines. In 2007, November 28, 2007, a spill occurred in Enbridge Line 3 in Clearbrook, Minnesota, resulting in an explosion. Yeah, so it just exploded. The accident happened when Enbridge attempted to complete a repair of the seam leak by installing an 11-foot section of the pipeline. One of the couplings used to join the new section of the pipeline slipped during the restart of the new line, allowing the release of the crude oil that formed into a flammable cloud. An open flame heater positioned at the end of the evacuation ignited the cloud, resulting in a fire that caused the death of 2 Enbridge employees, as well as property damage to the pipeline and the construction of the equipment. The PHMSA later fined the company $2,405,000 for this safety violation that was around that accident. 2008, Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources charges them again with another $100 or 100 environmental violations. On January 4th, 2009, state officials announced that Enbridge would pay $1.1 million in the fine of over 100 environmental law violations across 14 countries, as the company built the 321-mile Wisconsin portion of the Alberta Clipper project from Superior to near Milwaukee in 2007 and 2008. By the end of 2014, Enbridge actually stopped reporting any of the losses and anything that they had. Like I said, they said, and this is their quote, "Whenever there's a lawsuit or a spill or something like that, the agencies allow the companies to hold back the reports until their settlement. It could be embarrassing to the regulatory people to reveal what these companies report because it could show that their regulators failed to take action." So Enbridge just doesn't care. They don't let us know. But I will let you know within the last 10 years and what they have reported from 2094 up until 2014. So actually I should say 20 years. There is 9,423,708 gallons that they reported that were outside of all these. Okay, so time after time after time, they have shown that they don't care. Okay, there's no way to lay a pipeline in the system and not have it be tainted. These lines are broken due to the tectonic plate shifting, the unbalanced weight of the land, the cars driving over it, the natural disasters, the studies on the Earth's unsteady climate, the shifts in the water, freezing point, chemicals, sand, oil, unstable temperatures that don't allow the crude oil to move, as well as the other variations, such as the explosions, the clogs, and the accidents. And there's so much more. To date, Enbridge has not made one pipe system that is running that has not had some kind of failure, that has not had some kind of problem that has occurred to it. Okay, now let's go into what is happening to our Ojibways out there, because this is absolutely asinine. As I said, we would be breaking 4 different treaties. Now this was actually, out of anything that I have found, if I were to ever be a Native American, and although I'm not, I was so blown away by this portion of everything else that is happening. This was insane to me to even see that this happened. So I checked up, okay, so where does the wild rice grow, right? Because in the when we are speaking about the 7 fire prophecy and the Anishinaabe and the way that they followed the land here. They were actually told, find the land of the turtle in the step 1, find the land of the turtle and go to where the food grows into the water. And that is how they came about Minnesota, is by following the Medewin Lodge and leading them to here where the water would grow into the food, okay, or where the food would grow into the water. So that is how they ended up here. And they camped by a large body of water, and at that point, there was prophecy that there was going to be a little boy, and that little boy was going to start to show the Anishinaabe people the way. The third ring of fire is that people would find their path to their chosen grounds, and that they would have to move their families, and that land would be, once again, where food grounds on the water. Okay, so they had a whole tribe of people that were walking, looking for the turtle land, that ended up coming into this land because this was the land that was prophesized of the purified water. Okay, currently Minnesota only holds 40% of its water is actually drinkable, swimmable, or cookable. Okay, now having more oil spills, especially within our Mississippi, and then I'm not even going to get into the boundary waters right now and what's going to be going on there with the sulfide copper mining. We'll talk about that on a whole nother video, okay? But we're coming to a point right now within these 7 prophecies that are really coming true, and it's really crazy when we actually hear that and then hear what we are doing to them, okay? So the 4th prophecy says that the light-skinned peoples are going to come, and when they come, that they will come with the face of brotherhood, and that we need to get along, and that they need to teach us, and that we should all be one, okay? And we come with no weapons. But then it says in the same prophecy on that is, beware of them, because they come saying that they're a brotherhood, but they have the face of death. And the face of death and the face of the light-skinned look exactly the same. So the fifth prophecy says there will come a struggle into the natives' lives, and in the struggle of all of the natives' lives and whatnot, that there will be promises of a new way, and they will abandon the old teachings, and then they will struggle for the fifth fire. There will be people of many generations, and the promises that come to prove false promises, and those who accept the promise will cause near destructions of the people. So they're saying that when the light-skinned people come in, we're pretty much lying, and that's kind of what we did. I mean, we came in the land and, oh yeah, we're gonna have peace, and we want you guys to teach us and everything, and then up yours, right? Because who cares about these 4 treaties that are going on right now, okay? The sixth fire says that those who deceived by the promises and will take their children away, in the teachings of the elders, and the grandsons and the granddaughters will turn against the elders, and the way that the elders will lose their reason for living. Okay, we're seeing this a lot of the elders are so angry, or so upset, especially because of what the light-skinned people have done, what we have promised. We have gone into their lands, we have taken their teachings, we have taken their ceremonies, we have taken so much from them that now it's going to come back on us. And now here we are in the ring of fire. And in the seventh ring of fire, new people will emerge. So these new people are people that are of native, that are of light skin, that are of other skins, and they will realize the steps to find their way back to the ends. The steps will take the elders who will ask, and the elders will ask for guides, and they will ask for the journey and whatnot. Many of the elders would have fallen asleep, so they're saying like, hey, we're going to reach out, and hey, but we treated them so poorly that some of them fall asleep and they don't know what they're supposed to be doing anyway. There will be a rebirth of the Anishinaabe nation, though, if the people remain strong on their quest with the Medean Lodge, and their voice is loud, okay? And if we can do this, if we can come at this with peace, if we can come at them with loud voices, if we can come at these pipelines, and we can actually stand for our land, the sacred fire, it will be lit again. But if not, I'm going to actually say a quote from one of their things. It is the time that the light-skinned race will be given a choice between 2 roads. If they choose the right road, the 7th fire will light the 8th and the final fire, and the internal fire of peace, love, brotherhood, and sisterhood. If the light-skinned race makes the wrong choice off the road, then the destruction which they brought with them will then be coming to this country and will come back at them and cause so much suffering and death to all of Earth's people. Doesn't that sound kind of what's happening? I mean, you know, I get asked the question, like, what are you going to do with their pharmaceuticals? What are you going to do? How are you going to drive? How are you going to do all this stuff? Da, 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 da. How the hell am I going to drive a car if I don't have any water to drink, and I don't have the ability to get into my car because I'm so dehydrated, and I don't have any food because I don't have any water to feed them with the food, and I can't give my animals, and I can't give it to my land, and I can't give anything, so I'm just going to be sitting in my house starving to death, and I'm going to be thirsty to death, and I'm not going to have a land to step on because when I step outside there's going to be so much oil. So the question isn't, how am I going to get somewhere? The question is, how am I going to live? Okay, and that's what all this pipeline 3 is about. Is how are we going to take over this? Now, I was talking before, you know, about the Ojibways and stuff and what they were talking about and whatnot. And running a new line would impact the natural conditions of the ecosystems of the wild rice production, which is the huge point of stability for their survival, their financial gains, and everything that they have of this land, of what they came for. With the oh my goodness gracious. So sorry. They followed the Medewan here because our land was pure. Okay. Now, when I checked up, where is the wild rice most grown? This is what I found, that the annual plant native to the Great Lakes regions of North America is located within Alberta, where there's a pipeline, and they've had the most amount of spills there. Saskatchewan, I can't even say that word. Saskatchewan. Don't quote me on that. I'm going to show you this word here. Hopefully you guys can see it. I don't know. Sorry, I had to write all this down and make sure that I had notes. But okay, that is actually one of the biggest oil spills on the Canadian side. Montioba, also one of the biggest oil, or a lot of the oil spills. Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Idaho. Now, outside of that, Idaho is the only one that has not had a ton of spills. But Alberta, Saskatchewan, I am so sorry. I am just slaughtering that, and I apologize. Manitoba, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Michigan. Greatest inland spill that ever happened, period, within Minnesota. Wisconsin has been getting it here and there and here and there. Now, the interesting thing is all of these places have pipelines. And out of all of the reports of all of Enbridge's stuff, this, where we grow wild rice, is actually the places that are getting tainted the most. So we are taking away an entire prophecy. We are slaughtering an entire prophecy and saying, oh, well, we don't care about your rice. We don't care about your nation. We don't care about your people because we just want oil. And this is absolutely asinine, people, okay? Because this is not what we should be doing. As a matter of fact, over the course of the 5 years, 68,244 people submitted comments, letters against Enbridge Proposal Line 3, and only 3,756 supporters were on there to replace it. That is a huge gap. Why are we even talking about this? Obviously, we, Minnesota, we don't want it. We have asked over and over and over and over and over to stop, and they just will not do it. Now, brothers and sisters, I ask you today, after this long speech, what are you going to do? What are you going to do for our land? What are you going to do for our kids and our water? What are you going to do? Because it is so heartbreaking to see that my land, the land that I live in, the land that I eat from, the land that I drink from, the land that I swim in, could be tainted in the next few years in a massive way. We're looking at Mississippi being tainted. That's huge, brothers and sisters. We'd be down to a 20% water, in which case, if there was a natural disaster, where would people go? Because Minnesota is actually the best place. If there were natural disasters, or if there was a shutdown electricity and we had nothing but the resources of the land to work on, Minnesota would be the #1 state within the entire USA to go to. Because of the fact that we had the 10,000 lakes, we had the purest water, we can grow our food into the waters. It's huge, brothers and sisters. So what can you do? You can go down there today until 5 o'clock and you can do a protest. You can go tomorrow from 4:30 until 5 and you can protest there. Get your information, take a seat, let them know that you were here to take a stand and that you do not want this. Write your legislators. Go on to the PUC line or the Public Utilities Commission webpage and write them there. We need your voice. We need you to speak, and we need this information to be shared. I love you, brothers and sisters. Please stay safe. Please, 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 please take care of our land. Because it's not hurting us, it's going to hurt a lot. It's already hurting our croplands. It's already hurt our water and what we can utilize within the state of Minnesota. It's already hurt the feelings of all of our natives and our brothers and sisters who have already been kicked to the curb over and over and shoved into a corner, said that this is their amount of space. Well, you know what, guys? It's not up to the Ojibwe to fight for us. And I thank you and I honor all of you guys who did. I honor all of my natives who are out there standing for us. But let's face it, white people, this is our fight. Get your ass up off the couch and start doing something, because this is going to affect way more than the reservations. It's going to affect you. I love you, and peace be with you. Good luck on all of your journeys.